U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. will begin revoking visas for Chinese students, especially those linked with communist parties and in sensitive sectors. Already, processing of student visas all over the world have been suspended until new rules are issued, which will include closer scrutiny of social media footprint and other additional checks. A U.S. Street court has ruled that Trump overstepped his authority by imposing across-the-board tariffs. The lawsuit, filed by the Liberty Justice Center on behalf of 5 small businesses, is the first major legal challenge to Trump tariffs, a space to watch. The poster child for the AI boom, chip giant Nvidia, reported a mixed first quarter performance after the closing bell yesterday. Revenue of $44.1 billion did beat estimates of $43.3 billion, and it was an impressive 70% growth from $26 billion revenue in the same period last year. Earnings per share was $0.96, also ahead of estimates for $0.93 and $0.61 last year. But if we look only at data center revenue, it was below estimates at $39.1 billion, under $39.2 billion expected, but much higher than $22.5 billion last year. New rules curbing exports related to China cost Nvidia $8 billion revenue, and in an interview recently at the Computex trade show in Taipei, Wang said the ban on exporting its H20 chips to China implied sales losses of as much as $15 billion. Wang said countries around the world are recognizing AI as essential infrastructure, just like electricity and the internet, and Nvidia stands at the center of this profound transformation. Hello, welcome back to Global Business Insights, where we take a closer look at the main business headlines moving markets all over the world. Our deep dive is on Nvidia results. LVMH Deputy CEO Stefan Bianchi has warned that Chinese customers have been pulling back on travel and consumer spending amid signs of weakening demand for luxury goods. The luxury leader said it's also unclear when demand in the US will recover in light of ongoing tariff uncertainty. Nissan UK is looking to the government for help as it faces one of its biggest financial pressure points in years. It's seeking a $1 billion syndicated loan backed by UK Export Finance, marking the first major tranche in a broader $7 billion funding plan. Nissan Sunderland plant, that's the crown jewel of its UK operations, may have been a deciding factor in London's support as it struggles to survive a massive debt wall coming due next year while trying to avoid deeper cuts at home. Meanwhile, in Japan, Nissan has suspended merit-based wage increases worldwide as it expands cost cuts amid weak performance in key markets. Christine Lagarde is reported to have discussed cutting short her term as European Central Bank president to become chair of the World Economic Forum, according to World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab, who left the WEF last month following misconduct allegations that he denies. Lagarde's tenure at the ECB is not due to end until 2027. And in the US, Office of Management and Budget Director Ross Workt said yesterday that the White House intends to send Congress a package next week to formalize cuts made by the Department of Government Efficiency targeting federal government spending. The cuts are currently being codified and may or may not get congressional approval, even as Musk has criticized the price tag of Republicans' tax and budget legislation making its way through Congress. Also in the U.S., the latest Federal Reserve, that's FOMC minutes, revealed, the Federal Open Market Committee minutes revealed that officials support a cautious approach to rate adjustments amid elevated economic uncertainty and rising risks of stagflation. In response, money markets are now seeing 45 basis points of rate cuts by the end of the year. Later today, apart from speeches from senior Fed officials, we also get the second estimate of US Q1 GDP growth, initial jobless claims, pending home sales, and the Energy Information Administration's weekly report on US crude oil stockpiles. Apple is planning a major rebrand as it makes sweeping changes to its operating system names, also part of a software overhaul that extends to all its devices. Apple could announce the rebrand at its Worldwide Developers Conference on June the 9th. The branding will also accompany fresh user interfaces across the operating systems. As part of the changes, Apple plans to give the iPad a more Mac-like experience, potentially making it more useful for office work. Chile's SQM, that's the world's second largest lithium producer, yesterday missed Q1 profit estimates and warned of lower realized prices in the next quarter due to oversupply of the metal that is crucial for electric vehicle batteries. The company posted Q1 net profit of $137.5 million or 48 cents a share, much less than expected, while revenue for the January to March period came in at $1.04 billion, in line with analysts' estimates. Miners worldwide have seen a nearly 90% drop in lithium prices since their peak in late 2022 due to weaker than expected demand for electric vehicles and excess supply from China. Germany's new coalition committee met for the first time yesterday and agreed a work program to deal with budgetary and other key issues before the summer break to boost the German economy. It's expected that legislation must be passed before money from a 500 billion euro special fund to finance infrastructure can begin to flow, and this is expected to happen by the summer. Oil prices gained more than 1% on supply concerns as OPEC Plus agreed to leave their output policy unchanged and as the US barred Chevron from exporting Venezuelan crude, putting pressure on supply. Tougher sanctions on Russian oil over the Ukraine conflict could also tighten supply further and help prices. According to the IMF, after a review mission to the country, Egypt has made progress towards macroeconomic stability and has been streamlining tax and customs procedures, but still needs to widen its tax base. An IMF team visited Egypt from May 6 to 18th as part of its fifth review of an $8 billion financial support agreement signed in March 2024. And in a strategic move to accelerate Nigeria's industrial revolution, the Director General of the Nigeria-China Strategic Partnership, Mr. Joseph Tegbe, has said that the partnership is seeking policy alignment that would reposition Nigeria's economy through the mining and automotive sectors, also unlocking the full industrial potential of those sectors, shifting Nigeria from an import-dependent economy to a production and export-led industrial powerhouse. Nvidia exceeded estimates despite the sizable impact of the slump in its China business due to new curbs on export to China. The Chinese market is a very competitive market, and many are pivoting to Huawei stacks, which may not be as powerful as the latest US hardware, but they need hardware and software they can rely on, and Nvidia's ability to deliver can no more be assured. Nvidia MD Wang, in an interview, said they saw a major ramp-up with the demand for reasoning AI inference solutions going off the charts. OpenAI, Microsoft, Google demand also much higher as agentic AI takes off. The supply chain also improving, allowing much more orders to be fulfilled than demand. It was also possible to divert some of the parts or solutions targeted for China, which reduced the impact of the China problem. 50% of AI researchers are linked to China, and the competition in China will take advantage of the limitations to Nvidia. Nvidia may be able to sell less powerful solutions, but as the competition advances, that becomes increasingly difficult. Still, Nvidia sees $45 billion revenue in Q2. Not bad. That's the quarter ending July, as it continues to lobby government to relax part of the export curbs. Johnson Wang, however, commended the vision of the US government to use tariffs to re-industrialize the US and motivate investments, also emphasizing on the need to accelerate having more regions outside the US building their AI on American technology platforms. Nvidia is also working with Tesla and other Musk initiatives like Grok's XAI, Optimus, humanoid robots, self-driving cars, and so on, which he described as revolutionary. But the next big thing could also be working with nation states, as the Nvidia CEO tours Europe next week. Artificial intelligence is becoming a national infrastructure issue as countries are getting even more interested to not be left behind. Europe, for example, is looking to ramp up AI factories and its AI infrastructure in collaboration with Nvidia. The big issue remains whether Nvidia can continue to be as resilient without a huge chunk of China business. But maybe Europe will fill that gap and growth in the US, as the US continues to be the hub of artificial intelligence growth. All is yet to be clear how much of an advantage Chinese competitors have and will be able to take from Nvidia's slowdown in that market, and whether Nvidia can still get the US to relax aspects of the new rules. The biggest takeaway, however, for markets is that the quarter will have been a blowout quarter, if not for the China curbs and other unaffected models and a new downgraded AI chip based on the Blackwell architecture. Perhaps we'll be able to fill the gaps going forward. And then, of course, we are watching what happens with nations as they build AI infrastructure in partnership with Nvidia. We see that happening already in the Middle East and perhaps potentially in Europe. Nvidia shares was up 5% in after hours. Elon Musk has announced in a post that his time as a special government employee is coming to an end. Musk was designated as a special government employee, allowing him to work a federal job for 130 days each year. Measured from Trump's inauguration on the 20th January, he would hit that limit towards the end of May. Tomorrow would be his last day, but efforts to embed the Department of Government Efficiency in U.S. legislation are said to be continuing. Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek released an update to its R1 reasoning model early today, stepping up competition with US rivals such as OpenAI. Asia Pacific stocks closed today mostly higher, tracking US futures, which went higher after Nvidia results and on news that a court has struck down Liberation Day US tariffs, a move that the administration said is being appealed. European stocks also expected to open higher. Earlier, Nvidia boss Jensen Huang had commended Trump on efforts to reindustrialize the country and attract investments using tariffs. Perhaps he spoke too soon. Meanwhile, yesterday, U.S. stock indexes closed down with the Dow down falling 0.58%. S&P 500 also fell 0.56%, and the Nasdaq Composite Index dropped 0.51%. Russell 2000 Index sank 1.15% as uncertainty continues to weigh on sentiment. It's all about high volatility as we continue to see the zigzag pattern on U.S. stock movements. Well, that's it on this edition of Global Business Insights. Thanks for watching. This is Bode Oshosami.